Welcome back. In this video, I'll provide a broad overview of literature reviews, from definitions and scope to what the overall process looks like. What is a literature review? Well, in short, it's a summary and synthesis of the relevant literature on a topic. By summarizing the relevant and important literature on a topic, you bring readers up to speed on the developments in your field prior to introducing them to your contributions. Beyond that, research is iterative and collaborative. You want to credit the works that came before your own. But it's not enough to simply summarize all of those works. You need to synthesize the literature into a narrative structure showing relationships between relevant works. This can reflect progress in your field of study, interpretations of observations, debates, or issues that appear in the literature. New information is often gained by combining old information. Not to get too philosophical here, but one could argue that information is not created, but organized to build new connections and form an understanding of the world around us. In other words, information is discovered. That's what you are trying to do with a literature review. Build those connections that help explain how you got to your research contributions. I know that for me, the literature review is quite similar to many assignments I had as an undergraduate student or even in grade school and high school. It looks a lot like a research paper, but tends to be better researched, more specific to your contributions, and more thoroughly founded in the scholarly discourse. Reviewing the literature allows you to build an understanding of the state of research in your field. You build this understanding and then use the composition of the literature review to demonstrate that understanding to your readers. You want to demonstrate a breadth of understanding. How does your specific discipline fit into the larger field? But also a depth of understanding about how your research specifically fits into the gaps and state of current research within your particular subdiscipline. The literature review as a narrative device leads the reader into your research with sufficient background to understand why you are pursuing your research and how your work contributes to the larger scholarly conversation. You are effectively providing a roadmap through the research which frames your work in what is known and established within scholarly discourse. This lends credibility to your work by demonstrating that you have done due diligence in ensuring that your work is providing novel contributions and that you have not merely invented the problem that you are investigating. Not all reviews of the literature have the same goals. First, literature reviews can be publications on their own, but are more often introductions to a topic in the beginning of a work. This is the type I'm most focusing on in this lesson. This is where you identify, evaluate, and synthesize the existing body of literature related to your research topic, with a defined scope related to that topic. A meta-analysis is an analysis of studies that all seek to address the same problem or research question. These types of studies are common in medicine. For example, there may be a meta-analysis of the effects of semaglutides on obesity. Many of the individual studies might be small scale and involve only a particular dosage or population. But by combining them into a meta-analysis and providing a cross-section of results across studies, you are able to draw more complete conclusions as to the efficacy of a particular treatment on a particular problem. Systematic reviews are far less concentrated on the conclusions and more on the trends in research. They tend to be comprehensive and exhaustive of all literature on a particular topic. In these cases, the search methodology is the experimental design, and they're largely focused on citation analysis. For example, you might describe the databases you searched, how you combined the literature and processed it. Systematic reviews may include the number of publications in a particular discipline over time, or the appearance of particular phrases to identify how things are described within the literature. These tend to be less of a summary of findings across the literature and more a big picture analysis of what literature has been published on a particular topic. These are once again common in medicine, but they're branching into other disciplines as well. These types of articles are also valuable to you as researchers, as they can help you find literature as you conduct your review. Now that we have some definitions out of the way, what does the process of conducting a literature review look like? First, It started early in your research. You want to understand the problem thoroughly and not repeat effort if there's no real reason to doubt results from prior works. You also want to understand a problem thoroughly to develop your own methodologies to test it. The first pass at looking into the literature may be enough to get you started and develop an experimental design or research question, but scholarship is not stagnant. You need to revise the literature review throughout your research. You might run against hurdles and need to revise your methods, or notice that something crosses the boundaries of a particular single discipline. You want to understand these problems and include them in your literature review. A literature review is then completed after you finish your research. There may be developments in your research that challenge expectations. You want to understand if the literature can help you explain those challenges. You may also find that other researchers are working on your topic too. You don't want to find out upon peer review that another group has published work on the exact same thing that you're working on. You want the literature review to reflect the most current state of literature in your discipline. Finally, it's written to your audience. If you're targeting a journal like Science or Nature, the readership is going to have very different levels of expertise than a discipline-specific journal. This will dictate how much background is necessary. Generally, it's described as a linear process. You define the scope, identify the literature, analyze findings across the literature, and then summarize and synthesize the relevant literature into a narrative structure. This is how I've organized this lesson, but anytime there's revision involved, the reality tends to be a bit messier. Realistically, you will find that searching and analyzing literature results in a feedback loop. I find the process to be an application of the scientific method. I used a common version of the scientific method to develop this figure. As you try different things in searching or experiments, your search strategy will need to change to address the new knowledge gained and challenges faced. The scientific method is a loop, and just like publications in science discourse, your literature review is a snapshot of a particular moment in that loop of continuous improvement. In other words, you must exit the loop at some point and consider your literature review good enough. Sometimes this results from external pressure, like your paper is due for a class, or your work needs to be submitted to a journal by a particular deadline. Or it could be that you feel your research has reached a good conclusion and you just want to get it out there. Regardless of whether you subscribe to the linear or feedback loop models of literature review, you will likely need to start with defining your scope. What are the boundaries of your research? Scope creep is very real. You start looking into things at the peripheries of your topic and go down the rabbit hole. Defining bounds can help you avoid this. These bounds will likely change as you refine your topic. One potential boundary might be the date of publication. Virtually every library database has the ability to limit by date, so this can be an easy process to limit articles. Some disciplines are rapidly evolving. Artificial intelligence is moving fast. Something that was published 5 years ago might be considered outdated, depending on what you are researching. The methods for training AI will likely remain the same or similar to what was done 5 years ago, but human interactions with AI have shifted dramatically. I have a background in geology. The Earth doesn't change that quickly, so something published decades ago could be perfectly relevant to current research. Finally, you have limitations. You may have deadlines that dictate the time which you can spend reviewing the literature. There may also be associated costs with some articles. Your institution cannot subscribe to all literature, and articles locked behind paywalls may pose a limitation to your review. You can and should ask your library to borrow anything that you may need, but sometimes even that is restricted and it always takes time. Beyond financial resources, you may also have limited access to resources if they're published in a foreign language or considered proprietary or classified information. You will need to work with what you have access to. Once you have a scope, you can begin formulating keywords to access items within that scope. Here I'm using the topic of urban green spaces. From a cursory look into this topic, I can tell that urban green spaces is an official term used by urban planning. It is related to urban open spaces, and then there are some common language terms as well. Folks not involved in urban planning might call them parks or open space or community gardens. Then you have acronyms. Urban Heat Island, or UHI, is a phenomenon of urban environments trapping heat, something that urban green spaces help to reduce. There may be brands or types related to a particular topic. Here, urban conservation area seems to be a specific type of urban green space different from a park in that it serves the additional purpose of environmental conservation. You might want to limit to specific geographic areas. Maybe you're looking at the United States generally or Denver more specifically. Then there are associated terms, things that may relate to your research topic, like recreation, blue spaces, which are water-based open space, vegetation, impacts on human health, like respiration and mental health, things like rainwater drainage that urban green spaces may help to promote. Finally, there are disciplinary types of jargon. If you are in business, you may use NAICS codes, which define particular industries. You might use chemical formulae or drug names. There may be more types that I missed here too, but as you research, some of these specific types of terms will reveal themselves. As a reminder, add literature review and systematic review or meta-analysis to your search string. Try to find those types of resources. They can be great sources to mine for citations. Up next, I'll have you work on formulating keywords for a topic you are interested in. It's always wise to take notes of what you're working on and what is working. I can't tell you how often I've started a search and found something perfectly related to what I was researching and then moved on to something else and forgotten how to get back to my perfect resources. It's frustrating, but it's also avoidable. So please use this opportunity to take some notes of what strategies you might try to find the information you're seeking.